Good day everyone, we're Group 3 and we will be tackling about Ethics in Marketing Chapter 8. The chapter objectives are apply an ethical framework to marketing issues, describe the 3 key concerns of ethical analysis of marketing issues, describe 2 interpretations of responsibility and apply them to the topic of product safety, explain contractual standards for establishing businesses' responsibilities for safe products, articulate the tort standards for establishing businesses' responsibilities for safe products, analyze the ethical arguments for and against strict product liability, discuss how to evaluate both ethical and unethical means by which to influence people through advertising, explain the ethical justification for advertising, raise debates about advertising's influence on customers' autonomy, distinguish ethical from unethical target marketing using marketing to vulnerable populations as an example, discuss businesses' responsibilities for the activities of its supply chain. James Collins said, "A magazine is simply a device to induce people to read advertising." James Collins was an American journalist and magazine editor known for his work with publications such as Time, New York, and Playboy. The statement suggests that the primary purpose of a magazine is to attract readers in order to expose them to advertising. In this view, the editorial content of the magazine is seen as a means to an end, serving the ultimate goal of promoting and supporting advertising sales. Some believe the very purpose of business is found within marketing function. The American Marketing Association defines marketing in a way that echoes the stakeholder model of CSR in Chapter 5. According to AMA, marketing is an organizational function. Marketing is not just a department within a company but an integral part of its overall structure and strategy, and a set of process for creating, communicating, and delivering value to customers. Creating value involves identifying their needs and wants, developing products or services that fulfill those needs, and delivering them in a way that satisfies customers and provide them with benefits. Communication includes advertising, promotional activities, public relations, and other communication strategies to reach and engage target audience. Delivering value includes making products or services easily accessible, ensuring their availability, and providing excellent customer service throughout the purchasing process. And for managing customer relationships in ways that benefit the organization and its stakeholders. Managing customer relationships emphasizes building and managing long-term relationships with customers. It involves understanding customer preference, gathering feedbacks, and maintaining customer satisfactions and loyalty. Marketing ethics examines the responsibilities associated with bringing a product to market, promoting it to buyers, and exchanging it with them. The exchange between a seller and a buyer is indeed central to the market economy and forms the core idea behind marketing. Marketing involves the various activities and processes that facilitates this exchange and create value for both the buyers and the seller. In a market economy, goods and services are produced and offered for sale, and buyers have the freedom to choose among various options based on their needs, preferences, and budgets. Marketing ethics examines the responsibilities associated with bringing a product to the market, promoting it to buyers, and engaging in the exchange. It involves considering and adhering to moral and ethical principles in all marketing activities. This includes aspects such as honesty, transparency, fairness, and respecting consumer rights, protecting consumer privacy, and avoiding deceptive or manipulative practices. Ethical marketing practices aims to build trust and long-term relationships with customers, foster consumer confidence in the marketplace, and ensure the well-being of all stakeholders involved. By considering ethical considerations, marketing seeks to balance the interests of the seller, the buyer, and the society as a whole. Overall, marketing ethics plays a vital role in ensuring that this exchange is conducted responsibly, transparently, and in a manner that benefits on all parties involved. A producer's job is to first consider who, if anyone, is likely to be interested in purchasing his or her product, or who can be influenced to want to purchase it. The product might then be redesigned or changed based on market research. Once the producer has identified potential customers or target market segments, their next step is to understand their needs, preferences, and purchasing behavior through market research. This research helps the producer gain insights into what features, design elements, or improvements are desirable for the product. Based on the market research findings, the producer may decide to redesign or modify the product to better align with the target customer's expectations and preferences. This could involve enhancing its features, improving its quality, adjusting its packaging, or making it more user-friendly. Once the product is ready for market, the producer must decide on a price that will be mutually acceptable. After the necessary modifications have been made, the producer must determine an appropriate price for the product. This involves considering various factors such as production cost, competition, perceived value, and target market's willingness to pay. The goal is to set a price that is mutually acceptable to both the producer and the customers by ensuring profitability while remaining competitive in the market. By considering the target customer's need, preferences, and affordability, and adjusting the product and its price accordingly, the producer increasing the likelihood of attracting potential buyers and creating a successful market presence. The producers might also consider advertising the product to attract new potential buyers using salespersons. Advertising plays a vital role in attracting new potential buyers. Salespersons can be employed to promote the product directly and potential customers. They can provide detailed information, address queries, and highlight the benefits of the product to generate interest and drive sales. However, it's worth noting that advertising strategies can vary depending on various factors such as target market, product type, and budget. Besides salesperson, producer can also leverage other advertising channels such as traditional media, TV or radio or print, digital marketing, social media, online ads, influencer marketing, or public relations to reach a wider audience and increase brand visibility. The producer might conduct market research to gather information and use that information in production, pricing, promotion, and placement decisions. Furthermore, market research assists in placement decisions by providing insights into the most suitable distribution channels and locations. Producers can identify where their target customers are more likely to encounter and purchase their product. This information helps in determining the appropriate distribution channels, retail partners, or online platforms to ensure the product is accessible and available to potential buyers. All these factors are elements of marketing. What, how, why, and under what condition is something produced? What price is acceptable, reasonable, fair? How can the product be promoted to support, enhance, and maintain sales? Where, when, and under what condition should the product be placed in the marketplace? These four general categories, product, price, promotion, place, are sometimes referred to as the 4 P's of marketing. Product. This refers to the tangible or intangible item or service being offered to customers. It includes considerations such as the features, designs, quality, packaging, and branding of the product. Marketers need to understand what customers want and develop products that meet their needs and preferences. Price. Price refers to the amount of money customers are willing to pay for the product. Setting the right price involves considering factors such as production cost, competition, customer perception of value, and pricing strategies. Marketers need to determine a price that is acceptable, reasonable, and fair to both the customers and the company. Promotion. Promotion involves the activities and strategies used to communicate and promote the product to the target market. It includes advertising, sales promotions, public relations, personal selling, and other promotional techniques. This goal is to create awareness, generate interest, and persuade customers to purchase the product. Placement or distribution. Placement refers to the process of making the product available to customers at the right place and time. It involves decisions related to distribution channels, retail outlets, logistics, and inventory management. Marketers need to ensure that the product is accessible and convenient for customers to purchase. Market exchange is prima facie ethically legitimate because it involves respect for autonomy. Market exchange respects individual autonomy by allowing individuals to make their own choices and decisions regarding the goods and services they wish to buy or sell. It acknowledges and upholds the freedom of individuals to engage in voluntary transactions based on their own preferences and values. Mutual benefit. Market exchange is based on the principle of mutual benefit. Both parties involved in a transaction are entering into it voluntarily because they believe it will provide them with some form of value or benefit. By engaging in market exchange, individuals have the opportunity to satisfy their needs, desires, and preferences while also contributing to economic growth and prosperity. This ethical judgment is conditional because the transaction must be truly voluntary. This means that all parties involved freely choose to participate without coercion or manipulation. If there is any form of force, fraud, or undue influence involved, the ethical judgment may change. Informed consent is needed. Requires individual to have a comprehensive understanding of the potential risk, benefits, and consequences of their actions. It involves providing relevant information and ensuring that the individuals are capable of making autonomous decisions. Benefits might not occur. While an action may appear ethically justifiable based on expected positive outcomes, the absence of guaranteed benefits require a cautious approach. Other values might conflict. Ethical judgments allows for a consideration of the relative importance of different values and the need for careful deliberation to reach an ethically acceptable decisions. These four conditions imply the following four questions, each of which requires considering several factors. Is exchange voluntary? Real alternative choices may not be available. In some cases, individuals may not have real alternative choices due to various constraints. This can include factors such as limited availability of goods or services, monopolistic practices, or systematic inequalities that restricts access to alternatives. When individuals are compelled to engage in transactions due to a lack of viable options, the voluntary nature of the exchange is compromised. Anxiety and stress in some purchasing situations. In certain purchasing situations, individuals may experience anxiety and stress, which can impact their ability to make truly voluntary decisions. High pressure sales tactics, misleading information, or emotional manipulation can create an environment where individuals feel coerced or compelled to make a purchase, undermining the voluntary nature of the transactions. Price-fixing monopolies, price gouging, etc., and other unethical business practices can limit the voluntary aspects of exchange. These practices can create unfair market conditions, restrict competition, or exploit consumers, leading to a transaction that are not genuinely voluntary. Targeted and vulnerable consumers. Certain groups of consumers, such as those who are vulnerable, marginalized, or targeted by manipulative marketing techniques, may face additional challenges in engaging in voluntary exchanges. Power imbalances, information asymmetry, or predatory tactics can undermine the abilities of these consumers to make truly voluntary decisions. Is consent of exchange really informed? The concept of informed consent is exchange assumes that individuals have access to and understand the necessary information to make informed decisions. However, there are situations where the consent to exchange may not be truly be informed due to various reasons. Lack of information. In some cases, individuals may lack access to or sufficient information about the product, service, or transactions they are engaging in. This can occur due to information asymmetry, where one party possesses more knowledge or expertise than the other. Without adequate information, individuals may not fully understand the implications, risk, or alternative related to the exchange, compromising the informed nature of their consent. Deception. Deceptive practices such as false advertising, misinterpretations, or withholding important information can undermine the informed consent of individuals. If relevant information is intentionally concealed or distorted, individuals may make decisions based on incomplete or misleading information, leading to exchanges that are not truly informed. Complicated information. In certain situations, the information involved in an exchange may be complex, technical, or difficult to understand. This can make it challenging for individuals to grasp the full implications or consequences of their decisions. When information is overly complicated or presented in a way that is beyond the comprehensions of the average person, their ability to provide informed consent may be compromised.
Are people truly benefited? Impulse buying or affluenza consumerism, injuries, unsafe products, contrary wants. Completing values, justice, example, redlining, mortgages, market failures, externalities. A simple situation in which two parties freely agree to an exchange is prima facie ethically legitimate. There must be respect for autonomy and mutual benefit. In order to assess prima facie, conditions must be met. The agreement must have resulted from uninformed and voluntarily consent, and there was no fraud, deception, or coercion involved. When these conditions are valid, autonomy is not respected and mutual benefit is not attained. Even when such conditions are met, other values may override the freedom of individuals to conduct for mutually and for beneficial purposes. Freedom of the dealers to pursue mutually agreeable ends is overridden by society's concern to maintain law and order. Keep three issues in mind when approaching any ethical issues in marketing. These issues are the degree to which individuals freely participate in an exchange, the benefit and cost of each exchange, and other values affected by the exchange. It is not always easy to determine if someone is being treated with respect in marketing situations. First, the person must freely consent to the transaction. The more consumers need a product, the less they are to choose and the more protection they deserve within the marketplace. Practices aimed at vulnerable population raise questions of voluntariness. Second, consent must not only be voluntarily but also informed. The complexity of many consumers' products and services can mean that consumers may not be fully understand what they are purchasing. Many purchases do not result in actual benefit due to impulse buying or unsafe product. Third, decide if other values are affected. Primary social values of fairness, justice, health, and safety are some of the values that can be jeopardized by some of marketing practices. In general, business has an ethical responsibility to design, manufacture, and promote its product in ways that avoid causing harm to consumers. Responsibility may mean the cost of something, and in other sense it involves accountability. Both laws and ethics rely on this when evaluating cases in which products or services can cause harm in the marketplace. Contract laws and the ethics implicit in contracts is one legal approach to product safety. Tort law provides a second legal approach to product safety. A third legal doctrine, strict liabilities, addresses questions of legal and ethical responsibility for cases in which no one is at fault but someone has been harmed. Caveat import approach assumes that every purchase involves the informed consent of the buyer and therefore it is ethically legitimate. Business's only legal and ethical responsibility is to provide a good or services at an agreed upon price. Places ethical constraints on the seller not to coerce, defraud, or deceive buyers. Implied warranty of merchantability. In selling a product, a business implicitly assures it is suitable for its purpose. The standard shift for the burden of proof from the consumer to the producer. Many businesses will issue a disclaimer of liability or offer an express and limited warranty.
Third, standards for product safety. The ethics of contract law are not directly applicable. This is because the ethical principles inherent in contract law, such as the duty to fulfill contractual obligations or the duty of good faith and fair dealing, primarily apply to parties who have entered into a contractual agreement. Since consumers typically do not have direct contracts with manufacturers, the ethics of contract law may not directly govern the relationship between consumers and business in such cases. Negligence is a legal concept that falls under the area of law known as torts. In tort law, negligence refers to the failure to exercise reasonable care to avoid causing harm to others. It involves a breach of duty owed by one party to another, resulting in damages or injuries to the affected party. Unintentional failure to exercise reasonable care. Negligence is characterized by the unintentional failure of an individual or entity to exercise a level of care that a reasonable person would in similar circumstances. It means that the party responsible for the harm did not act with the necessary degree of caution or care which led to the injuries or damages suffered by another party. Considered to be one step below reckless disregard and two steps below intentional harm. The statement compares negligence to reckless disregard and intentional harm. Reckless disregard refers to a higher level of disregard for others' safety or well-being, where the responsible party demonstrates a conscious disregard for potential harm caused by their actions. Intentional harm, as the name suggests, involves deliberate actions aimed at causing harm or injury to another party. The distinction between contract law and tort law highlights two different ways of understanding ethical duties. Contract law focuses on duties that are explicitly agreed upon in contractual relationships, while tort law recognizes that individuals have broader ethical duties toward others, regardless of contractual obligations. Negligence, being a central concept in tort law, plays a significant role in determining whether an individual has breached their general duty of care. If negligence is established, it can lead to legal consequences and potential liability for the negligent party. What duties exactly do producers owe to consumers? The answer falls along a continuum refers to the fact that there is a range of perspective or approaches when it comes to determining the obligations of producers towards consumers in terms of product liability. On one end of the continuum, we have the perspective that producers owe only what they explicitly promise to consumers in the sales agreement. This implies that the producer's responsibility is limited to fulfilling the specific terms and conditions mentioned in the agreement. And on the other end of the continuum, we have the concept of strict liability. According to this perspective, producers are held accountable for any and all harms caused by their products, regardless of whether they explicitly promise safety or not. Under strict liability, if a product is defective or unreasonably dangerous, and the defect leads to harm or injury to a consumer, the producer can be held responsible for compensating the consumer. The middle of the continuum in the product liability and consumer protection refers to positions that fall between strict liability and producer owing only what was promised. Negligence involves failure to exercise reasonable care leading to injury or harm. Producers must reasonably anticipate potential risks or harms from their products, balancing consumers' interests and expectations with practical feasibility. In legal cases, two common standards are used to assess liability for harm caused. The first standard, which holds individuals accountable for the harm they foresaw occurring, requires a direct link between awareness and harm caused. The second standard, which suggests people should avoid harms they should have thought about, broadens liability beyond actual foresight and emphasizes the duty to consider potential harms. The reasonable person standard evaluates conduct based on factors like knowledge, experience, and judgment of a hypothetical reasonable person, aiming to assess whether an individual's behavior and decision-making process align with what a reasonably prudent person would have done in similar circumstances. Strict product liability. The negligence standard in tort law focuses on determining fault or responsibility in cases of harm or injury. However, in cases where no specific individual or party can be identified as at fault, the question of accountability arises. Strict product liability holds manufacturers or suppliers accountable for injuries caused by their products, regardless of their negligence. This doctrine imposes a legal duty on manufacturers to ensure product safety and quality. Consumers can seek compensation under strict product liability even if they did everything reasonably expected of them in designing, producing, and distributing the product. This shifts responsibility from consumers to manufacturers, promoting consumer protection and ensuring the safety and quality of their products. Strict product liability is widely adopted in jurisdictions to address accountability issues in cases where no negligence can be established. Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, quoted that if you make customers unhappy in the physical world, they might each tell 6 friends. If you make customers unhappy on the internet, they can each tell 6,000 friends. Jeff Bezos' quote emphasizes the importance of providing a positive customer experience in the digital realm. It serves as a reminder to businesses that in the age of social media and online connectivity, the impact of customer dissatisfaction can be far-reaching and have significant consequences for a company's reputation and success. Therefore, it highlights the need for business to prioritize customer satisfactions and address any issues promptly to mitigate potential negative impacts in the digital space.
The ethical debates on product liability within the United States calls to reform product liability laws are common, but the criticism is not universal. The European Union follows as a strict liability standards. US critics say liability standards and resulting insurance costs have imposed significant costs on contemporary business, singling out the strict product liability standard as especially unfair. The rationale used to justify strict product liability is problematic. Defenders say by holding business strictly liable, it creates incentive for business to produce safer goods and services. Also, holding business liable allocates the cost to the party best able to bear the financial burden. For the incentive argument, this seems to misunderstand the nature of strict liability. Holding someone accountable for harm provides incentive only if the person could have done otherwise. This means the harm was foreseeable and failure to act is negligent. Holding business liable for unforeseeable harms does not provide an incentive to better protect future consumers. For the financial burden argument, this rationale also suffers a serious defect. This argument claims that business is best able to pay for damages, yet many businesses have been bankrupted by product liability claims. If neither the company nor the consumer is at fault, who should pay for the injuries? The government is a third option. Holding business accountable might be a persuasive argument. Accountability focuses on those situations where no one is at fault. When business is held accountable, the cost for injuries eventually fall on those consumers who buy the product through higher costs. This amounts to the claim that external costs should be internalized and that the full cost of a product should be paid for by those who use the product. For the responsibility for the products, advertising and sales. Advertising is the second area for marketing, receiving legal and philosophical attention within business ethics. The goal of marketing is the sale, the eventual exchange between the seller and the buyer. A major element for marketing is sales promotion, the attempt to influence the buyer to complete a purchase. There are ethically good and bad ways of influencing others. Often sales and advertising practices employ deceptive or manipulative means of influence, or aim at susceptible audiences. To manipulate something is to guide its behavior by passing its autonomy. Manipulation may be done with or without deception. The more one person knows about another person's psychology, the better able the first person will be manipulate the other's behavior. Critics charge that many marketing practices manipulate consumer. For the ethical issues in advertising, the ethical defense of advertising is that it provides information for the market exchanges and therefore contributes to the market efficiency and to overall happiness. It provides information necessary for autonomous individuals to make informed choices. Note that each of these rationales provides an ethical justification only if the information is true and accurate. The principle-based tradition in ethics would have the strongest objections to manipulation. Utilitarian tradition would state that the goodness or badness of manipulation would depend on the consequences.
Ethical issue in advertising. The passage you provide discuss different aspects of marketing and manipulation. First, the worst from manipulation occurs when vulnerable people are targeted for abuse. This statement highlights that targeting vulnerable individuals for manipulation and abuse is highly unethical. It suggests that taking advantage of people who are easily influenced or in a weak state is particularly wrong. Second, marketing practice that seek to discover the consumer might already and independently be predisposed to purchasing a product and ethically legitimate. This guideline implies that acceptable for marketing practices to identify consumers who are already inclined to purchase a product on their own. This approach doesn't involve manipulation but focuses on understanding consumer preference and targeting them accordingly. Third, marketing practices that seeks to identify population that can be easily influenced and manipulated are ethically questionable. This point suggests that when marketing practice deliberately target population that easily influence and manipulate, it raises ethical concern. The implication is that such practice and exploit people vulnerabilities instead of promoting genuine choice. Fourth, sales and marketing that appeal to fear, anxiety, or other irrational motivation is ethically improper. This guideline states that using tactics and exploit fear, anxiety, or other irrational motivation to drive sales or marketing is ethically wrong. It suggests that manipulating people's emotion in this manner is not an acceptable practice. Fifth, marketing research seek to learn something about the psychology, and potential customers. This point highlight that marketing research aims to understand the psychological factors that influence potential customers by gaining insights into consumer behavior and preference. Companies and can tailor their marketing strategy effectively. Lastly is 6. Not all psychology categories are alike. Some are more cognitive and rational than others. This statement suggests that the different psychological category and aspect that influence consumer behavior. It implies that some factors are more rational and cognitive, indicate that individuals make decisions based on logical reasoning, while others can be driven by emotion of others' non-rational influence. Next is marketing ethics and consumer autonomy. The passage you provide discuss the arguments made by defender and advertising that raise ethical questions related to advertising and marketing. First, defenders of advertising argue that the majority of advertising provides information to consumers, information that contributes to efficient economy markets. This statement suggests that proponents of advertising believes that most advertisements serve as a means of providing valuable information to consumers. They argue that advertising plays a role in creating efficient economy markets by information consumers about products, service, and their features. Second, beyond the question of advertising doesn't for people, a second ethical question asks what advertising specifically and marketing in general doesn't to people. This statement highlights that there is a second ethical question that goes beyond the benefits of advertising for individuals. It focuses on examining the broader impact of advertising and marketing on people as a whole beyond just the provision of information. Third, marketing helps shape culture and the other who are socialized within the culture. This point asks the marketing plays a role in shaping culture and influencing the individuals who are a part of the culture. It suggests that the through advertising and marketing efforts, certain value, beliefs, and norms are promoted, influencing how people perceive and interact with the world around them. First, marketing can have direct and indirect influence on the very person we become. This statement suggests that marketing has the potential to shape and impact the individual we become. It implies that marketing message and strategy can direct or indirect influence our beliefs, value, preference, and other behavior, ultimately shaping our identities and personalities. Second, how it does this and the kind of people we become as a result in the fundamental ethical importance. This statement emphasizes that the process through which marketing influences individual and the resulting impact on the kind of people we become a matter of crucial ethic significance. It implies that the way of marketing shape individuals on their identity raises important ethical questions that need to be considered as addressed. Third, critics and such claim either deny that marketing can have such influence or maintain that marketing is only a mirror of the culture of which is a part. This statement refers to the perspective of critics who either reject the idea that the marketing has significant influence or the individuals or argue the marketing merely reflects the existing culture values and norms. The former group denies that significant impact of the marketing, while the latter group sees marketing as a reflection or representation of the surrounding culture rather than an active agent in shaping individuals. The view of Galbraith regarding the relationship between advertising, marketing, and consumer demand. First, Galbraith claims that advertising and marketing create the very consumer demand that production aims to satisfy. According to Galbraith, advertising and marketing were responsible for creating the demand and products that manufacturer and producer such as to fulfill. In other words, the ascension is the marketing strategy generate consumer desires and shapes the demand for goods and services. Second, the dependent effect. This ascension held to consumer demand depended on what producer had to sell. These three major and unwelcome implications. The dependent effect is the term of use describe Galbraith claims. It implies that consumer demand is influenced by what producer offers in the market. This ascension carries three significant implications that Galbraith found undesirable. First, the creating wants advertising was turning the law of supply and demand on its head. Demand turns out to be function of supply. This point suggests that advertising by creating the shape of consumer wants challenged the conventional understanding of supply and demand. It implies that demand is not solely driven by consumer needs to or preference, but influenced by what is supplied through advertising. Fourth, second, advertising and marketing create irrational and trivia consumer wants to distort an entire economy. Galbraith argued that advertising and marketing practice not only generate consumer desire but also lead to the creation or of irrational insignificant wants. He claimed that this distortion of consumer wants has negative consequence for overall economy. Fifth, finally, but creating consumer wants advertising and other marketing practices violate consumer autonomy. According to Galbraith, advertising and marketing practices undermine consumer autonomy by manipulate their desire and preference. This means the consumer ability to make independent choice and decision is compromised by the influence of marketing strategy. 6. Ethically is crucial point is the ascension that advertising violate consumer autonomy. From an ethical standpoint, the passage emphasized that significance of Galbraith's claims that advertising practices infringe upon consumer autonomy. This suggests that the manipulation of consumer wants through advertising raise ethical concern about the freedom of individuals to make independent choice. But can advertise violate consumer autonomy, and if it can doesn't, the law of supply and demand be reversed? This statement throws the question whether advertising can infringe upon consumer autonomy and whether it has the power to reverse the conventional understanding of the law of supply and demand. It sets that stage for future discussion and examination of these ideas. Second, phase of this debate claims that advertising control consumer behavior. Evidence suggests that this is false. This point presents what perspective of the debate, suggesting that advertising doesn't not directly control consumer behavior. It implies that evidence contradicting the notion that advertising has complete control over how consumers behave. Third, consumer autonomy might be violated in the subtler way. This statement suggests while direct control over consumer behavior may not exist, consumer autonomy can still be compromised in more subtler ways through advertising. It implies that advertising may influence consumer wants the desire, which in turn shape their action and choices. Fourth, rather controlling behavior, perhaps advertising create that wants and desires on the basics of which consumer act. This point proposes that advertising plays a role in creating that wants the desire that drive consumer behavior. It suggests that advertising shape consumers' preference and influence that formation of desires that guide their action and choices. Fifth, the focus here becomes the concept of autonomous desire rather than autonomous behavior. This statement highlights its shift in focus from autonomous behavior to autonomous desires. It suggests that instead of examining whether consumers' action and independent that emphasize on the whether the desires that lead to those actions are truly autonomous or influenced by advertising. 6. Consumer autonomy violate the advertising's ability to create autonomy desires. This point asserts that advertising capacity to generate that the not truly autonomous violates consumer autonomy. It suggests that when desires in influence or shaped by advertising consumer ability to make fully autonomous choice in compromise. 7. After basic needs are met, what do you people consume the way you do? This question raises that inquiry into consumer behavior beyond basic needs and explores the motivation behind people's consumer patterns. It seeks that understand why individuals make certain in non-necessary purchase and what factors including marketing may have influenced their choice. And lastly, 8. The ethical question is how much marketing has influenced these not necessity purchases. This statement highlights that ethical concerns surrounding extent to which marketing has influenced not essential consumer purchase. It suggests that understanding the impact of marketing on this choice is crucial to evaluate the ethical implication of advertising practices. F.W. Woolworth, an American businessman who lived from 1852 to 1919. I am the world's worst salesman, therefore I must make it easy for people to buy. This statement reflects Woolworth's recognition of his limitation as a salesman. He acknowledged that he lacks strong sales skills. As a result, he believes that in order to compensate for this deficiency and still successful in his business, he needs to make the buy process as easily as possible for customers. Woolworth's approach implies that he understands the importance of creating a seamless and straightforward purchasing experience. By removing obstacle and complexity from the buying process, he aims to make it more convenient and appealing for customers to make a purchase. This quote highlights Woolworth's customer-centric mindset and his commitment to providing a positive shopping experience. Despite considering himself as a poor salesman, and he is recognized the significance of facilitating to buy process that attract and satisfy customer, ultimately contribute to the success of his business.
The car retailer has conducted market research to better understand their typical customer. Based on their findings, they have identified a specific target audience that they believe will be interested in their products and services. This target audience consists of single women between the ages of 30 and 40 who have an annual income exceeding $50,000 and have a passion for outdoor sports and recreation. To effectively reach this target audience, the car retailer has developed advertising and direct mail campaigns that specifically cater to the interests and preferences of this demographic. The ads created by the retailer feature attractive and active young people who are depicted using their cars for outdoor activities, highlighting the synergy between their products and customers' desired lifestyle. By aligning their marketing efforts with the interests and aspiration of the target audience, the car retailer aims to create a strong connection and resonate with their potential customers. This approach helps the retailer establish a relevant and compelling brand image, increasing the likelihood of attracting and engaging customers who closely match their target demographic. Marketers do have a special responsibility to vulnerable individuals, including older widows living alone or any demographic that may be more susceptible to exploitation or harm. It is important for marketers to consider the potential impact of their campaigns and to act ethically and responsibly when targeting vulnerable population. In the case of second targeted campaigns selling emergency call devices to older widows living alone, The ad featuring an elderly woman crying out, "I've fallen and can't get up," may be considered ethically offensive for several reasons. First, it may appear to exploit the fear and anxiety that many older individuals experience regarding their safety and well being. By capitalizing on this emotion, the campaign may create unnecessarily distress or anxiety among the target audience. Marketers have a responsibility to approach advertising and communication with sensitivity and respect for vulnerabilities of the target audience. Instead of using fear based tactics, a more appropriate approach might involve focusing on practical benefits and peace of mind that the emergency call device can provide, highlighting how the devices can empower individuals to maintain their independence and have access to help when needed, without resorting to exploitative or distressing imagery or messaging, will be a more ethical choice. Consumer vulnerability refers to a situation where individuals may have their limitations in their ability to make informed decisions or exercise their consumer rights. This can be due to factors such as impaired intellectual capacities, psychological limitation, lack of experience, or immaturity. For example, children are considered vulnerable consumers as they may not have the knowledge or understanding to make informed consumer judgment. In such cases, marketers have a special responsibility to ensure that their marketing practices are fair, transparent, and do not exploit or take advantage of vulnerabilities of these consumers. On the other hand, general vulnerability refers to individuals who are susceptible to specific physical, psychological, or financial harm. This vulnerability can arise from various circumstances such as age, health conditions, economic status, or other factors. In both senses of vulnerability, marketers have an ethical responsibility to consider the impact of their action to ensure that they do not engage in practices that harm or exploit vulnerable populations. Marketing campaigns targeting elderly individuals for products like supplemental medical insurance, life insurance, or emergency call devices often rely on playing on fears, anxieties, and guilt that older people may experience. By exploiting these emotions, marketing may take advantage of their vulnerability of older people to sell their products. This can be seen as an ethical marketing strategy because it manipulates vulnerable individuals for financial gain, potentially causing them to make decisions that may not be in their best interests. There are cases where people become vulnerable to other harms because of their vulnerability as consumers. For instance, certain products such as tobacco and alcohol can make individuals vulnerable to a wide range of health risks. Unethical marketing practices by the tobacco and alcohol industries, including targeting vulnerable population, can contribute to increased consumption and associated health problems. This highlights the detrimental impact of marketing strategies that exploit the vulnerabilities of consumers, potentially leading to severe consequences for their well-being. Stealth or undercover marketing refers to a form of marketing where individuals are subjected to commercial activities without their knowledge or awareness. In this approach, the true marketing element of interaction is intentionally hidden or disguised. This practice can take various forms, including online activities where it becomes difficult to discern genuine user reviews from those generated by individuals who are paid to create a positive buzz around the product. Stealth or undercover marketing practices, including buzz marketing and disguised online reviews, can be considered unethical both on principle and utilitarian grounds. They undermine the transparency, consumer autonomy, and fair decision-making process, ultimately eroding trust in the marketplace. It is important for marketers to prioritize ethical practices that promote honesty, transparency, and respect for the well-being and rights of consumers. The doctrine of respondent superior recognizes that employers have a degree of control and responsibility for the action of their employees within the context of their employment. It is based on the understanding that the employers may benefit from the services and action of their employees and therefore should be the responsibility for any harm caused by their actions and in the course of their work. The doctrine of respondent superior recognizes the interconnectedness and shared responsibility within the supply chains holding employers accountable for the actions of their employees that occur within the scope of their employment. It serves as a means of promoting accountability and incentivizing the organization to ensure the ethical and responsible behavior throughout their supply chains. Suppliers often act at the direction or under the instruction of the business they supply. In many cases, business establishes specific requirements, standards, or codes of conduct that suppliers are expected to adhere to. These requirements may cover various aspects such as labor practices, environmental sustainability, product quality, and ethical consideration. As such, the actions and behaviors of suppliers can be seen as extension of the business itself, as they are carrying out the task or producing goods on behalf of the business. These expanded responsibilities involving setting clear expectation, monitoring supplier compliance, addressing any issues or violation promptly, and working collaboratively with the supplier to improve their practices. By embracing this concept of responsibility, businesses can help create a more sustainable, ethical, and accountable supply chain ecosystem where the well-being of workers, environmental consideration, and ethical conduct are given due attention at all levels of supply chains.